The more structured water we have in the body, the more flow we have in the body, the more energy, the more detoxification. So I think a lot of our lymphatics, the more structure water we have in our lymphatic system, the more we get this movement and flow. So that would be infrared. Also UV can be very good for that as well. Those are the two wavelengths of light. Getting good sleep can be really helpful for the lymphatic system, because we have this amazing lymphatic system in our brain at night that helps our brains detoxify. And think about your beauty routine actually can help detoxify your brain. So if you have a good flowing lymph in your face, in your neck, then that downstream effect of the lymph in your brain has somewhere to go. So you can feel even better about your beauty routine. So that's kind of the subtleness that I love working with the skincare line, because I know that the healthier we have lymph in our face and in our neck, the better our brains will be.
You're listening to Cleanse, Heal, Ignite podcast, and I'm your hostess, Diane Kaiser, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, former pro soccer player, transformational leader, holistic healer, and life purpose coach, helping you and your business awaken to your full potential. We are a transformation tribe of visionaries empowering passion-quenching, heart-centered advice to wellness warrior leaders on self-love, nutrition, mindset, and divorcing perfectionism. Our mission is to help you laugh your way to a sexy belly, love your way to vitality, and live your life with purpose by sharing real talk and truth drops that will help you cleanse your body, heal your hormones, and ignite your life. Side effects of this podcast may include all-day energy, happy hormones, perfect poops, increased confidence, becoming your own best healer, and catching the self-love virus. There's currently no vaccination to protect you from this and no known cure. In most cases, listeners experience a strong desire to accept new challenges, ditch toxic people, follow their heart, and dance like no one's watching. If you experience moods happier than usual, live it unapologetically and share with your social media friends immediately. Hey Warriors, before we got started on this episode with Dr. Christine Schaffner, I wanted to share the sponsor of our show today, which is Dr. Christine's skincare line and lymphatic boosters and drainers. So first of all, I'll share a couple links, but first of all, so that you know, she has extended a 10% off coupon for my listeners only, and it's for a limited time only as well. So once you go to the cart, you could just type in Warrior 10, all in lowercase letters, and you will get 10% off of your order. So the first one I wanted to share with you is her Sofia Flow Cream. And since I got this cream, she has added CBD to it, and she has also added some microbiome to it. So microbiome supporters with a little bit of support to help you remove some of the stagnant lymphatic drainage blockages in your neck or any area of your body that you are doing any self-lymphatic drainage on. Or if you're also having someone massage you gently or who's doing some lymphatic work on you, then you could also use this cream. It comes with 50 milligrams of CBD. So it's also advised that you use this and do not put your fingers in it, that you're using a wooden spoon or something to take just a tiny pea size to use on your neck or on your groin or your armpits. Or if you're a woman who just had her breast implants removed or are on your way to having an explant, you could also use it around your breast tissues to make sure that your drainage pathways are open before you remove your implant, so that there are pathways that are open. So these toxins that are prompted to leave your body can and will. So lymphatic drainage is such an important topic now that so few people are focusing on. As you may have heard me talk in many other interviews, do not start your detox. Do not start any detox until you know for sure that your drainage pathways are open and that you are focused on drainage. So there are 3 steps to detox. Is number 1, focusing on drainage. Number 2, detoxing the toxins that are already in your body. And then number 3, detoxing your environment to reduce the amount of toxins that you have to later detox that end up in your body. So there's a 3-step process. I talk about this in my Warrior Detox and Explant Detox. So you can go to either Warrior Detox or explantdetox.com to learn more about it. We also have special guests like Dr. Christine, as well as Kelly Kennedy, to specifically focus on lymphatic drainage and how to do it yourself in these programs. So the next one I will be doing is August of 2021, and we do one generally every 6 months or so, or every quarter. So when you do go to Lymph Skincare, which is LUMVI skincare.com, I'll put all the links below, whether this is on YouTube or on my podcast channel, so that you can access both the Sofia Flow as well as her Lymph Skincare line. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see exactly my very favorites, the things that I really like in her line. So once you get onto her page, this is Dr. Christine's product line. You're going to hear a lot more about why this stuff is so important in this episode for beauty, energy, and immunity, because because when we heal our insides, we can glow on the outside. And when we're taking care of our skin, we're also helping to detox from the inside out and from the outside in. So what I mean by that is if you're focusing on lymph detox, as an example, you click on lymph detox and you're using things like either the Sofia Flow cream, like I just mentioned, or if you're like, I'd rather start at a lower price point, you could also start with just the Lymphagem. And I'll click on that so that you can see a little bit more about what this is all about. There's been several reviews that I've heard about this, where if you have a throat infection, like this woman here says, I recently had a throat infection and my lymph nodes around my neck swelled up. With the help of this oil, I was able to massage the area and really speed up the recovery. The spa smell is so pleasant. This will be an essential part of my daily routine before bed. Thanks for creating this wonderful product. So that's another thing that you could use around your lymphatic nodes, especially if you're getting sick around your neck, or if you have thyroid issues or swelling or inflammation in your neck or your breast or your groin or your knees. So this is a lot of things that if you're going to do a self lymphatic drainage massage, have some kind of an oil or the Sofia Lymph Flow cream to help you, move these things out, because your skin will absorb everything that's on these products and the ingredients, so it can further support drainage throughout the entire body. The things I like about this is you can also buy a package where you get something like her lymph detox package, which is clarifying facial scrub, which is one of their top favorite products, as well as a gua sha wand, or you could just get the gua sha wand and the Lymphagem. So what the gua sha wand does is a practice that can help you detox and move your lymphatic stagnation in the face, so that you can give yourself a natural daily facelift by moving stagnant lymphatic toxicity out of your body, in your face, around your eyes. So if you notice you have puffiness around the eyes, or if you have swelling around your cheeks, or if you have it around your chin or on your neck, this is a great way to anti-age and to improve the appearance of your skin, reduce wrinkles and aging, etc. So maybe try stopping that toxic Botox routine, injectables, and jump straight into either the lymphatic gem and the gua sha package, or you can do this entire Love Your Lymph package, which I would highly recommend because I've tried all of these products, which you could do the clarifying facial scrub. You've also got the purifying cleanser, the stem cell facial cream, and the Lymphagem. So that you could also add the gua sha after that. So no matter what you're doing, whether it's the Sofia Flow with the CBD and the microbiome ingredients, or you're doing something like the lymph detox using the Lymphagem, make sure that you are using something to support your body while you're doing lymphatic drainage. So you can go to either one of those sites, use Warrior 10, that coupon, and that will help to improve your facial routine, to reduce puffiness, to improve anti-aging, as well as redness, as well as any fine lines that as you age, no matter how old you are. Usually it's from dehydration, especially in the skin. So let's get into the episode with Dr. Christine, but I hope that all the recommendations here I talked about will help you, and any savings is great. So go ahead and give it a try. Try some of the most favorite products, try the gua sha on a regular basis, and let us know how it works. Hey warriors, welcome back to another episode of Cleanse, Heal, Ignite podcast. And we are in season 2. I'm excited to bring someone to you that I've not had on the Chi podcast before, but maybe you have seen her in my non-toxic beauty summit. She was one of the favorites. We are almost a year away since when I did a program with Dr. Christine, and I was just like blown away with how much she condenses into one. We talked about women's hormones. We talked about the lymphatic system with regard to, and the relationship of your lymphatic system, which you're going to learn all about today, and your hormonal system, and why your hormones might be off. So many people are like, what do I do for my hormones? What do I take for it? What do I do for this? What do I take for it? And quite often it's not just about taking new things. It might be about removing things. So I always ask the questions of like, what's blocking the things that you desire, what will help you to build the things that you desire. And today we're going to talk about specifically the lymphatic system, related to 3 things: beauty, energy, and immunity. So how they connect and what the lymphatic system is. And Christine, I would just like to start by saying thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing with the lymphatic system, because it's still a pretty new thing. And it always surprises me, like why are we still not talking about this? Like, how is it that like 75% of our body is made of lymphatic fluid and 25% or so is made of blood, but yet we're just pumping blood tests all day long, and everybody's leaving the offices of the doctors going like, yeah, you're normal, your labs are normal, but I don't feel normal. So Dr. Christine, can you tell everybody how you got so excited and infatuated perhaps about the lymphatic
system.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for having me, Diane. It's always so fun to connect with you and your audience, and well, trusting the timing of when we finally got to do this recording. So, the lymphatic system is something that I just love sharing with my patients and with communities like yours, because again, as you said, it's just so overlooked and underappreciated. And how I really got passionate about this is through my work with patients. So, I've been practicing almost 11 years now, and I've seen a lot of patients who've struggled with chronic illnesses. And while their illnesses are quite complex and they affect many systems in their body, there are some foundational truths that really, once we navigate and once we address, help the body to flow better, to help the body do what it naturally knows how to do. And I'm a naturopathic physician. I've also studied a lot of bioregulatory medicine. And as you, we are big believers and we see every day that the body is always trying to move towards health, right? And why some people are struggling is there are certain roadblocks to their body's ability to self regulate and heal. And there can be roadblocks on many levels, but the lymphatic system, as my patients have shared with me, once we got that system addressed and moving and found solutions for, and also found things that could be chronically poisoning the lymphatic system or creating stagnation in the lymphatic system. I know you do so much great work around educating people about breast implant disease. And I think when we think about that illness, right, you have foreign objects in key lymphatic tissue for women, right? So how could this be a good idea for many women, right? So that's a huge interference for our lymphatic system to flow. We also look at dental infections and scar interferences and things that could be affecting the lymphatic system from moving. And so, again, my passion has really come from seeing this work in action and seeing when, again, in the midst of so many things that we're addressing with the patient, addressing this is something that they finally feel that momentum and movement in their health.
Ooh, and what would that sound like, Dr. Christine? What does it feel like? What does it sound like when a patient comes to you and says, "I've got all these symptoms," and I know I'm in practice too, so the list of symptoms and the list of diseases, diagnoses, and the list of medications and supplements and cleanses and treatments that they've tried and done is just getting longer and longer and longer, and they're losing hope. So what does it look like, when someone comes to you and says, "I've tried everything," or what feels like everything, and then you start to work on the lymphatic system, and then what do they start to experience? What does
Yeah,
lymph flow look like and feel like?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of those symptoms that we both address, right? So the multi-systemic symptoms that have many underlying causes can show up in the body. First, we can think about some symptoms, right? So people can understand when the system gets flowing, what can improve in their body. So, things in the mental world, from insomnia, depression, anxiety, brain fog, sinus congestion, allergies, lymphatic swelling or sore throats. We can see a lot of digestive distress, even pain, and cellulite, is also another, lymphatic sign. And so all of these symptoms can, again, have many underlying causes, but one can be stagnation in their lymphatic system. So once we get that system moving, and again, part of my work and what I've been trained to do is to understand, okay, what are the underlying causes that, as you've mentioned, often lie in the realm of immunity and the ecosystem in the body, toxicity, also epigenetics, emotional health as well. So we look at all those, but there can be key, what we call interference fields in the body. And these can be areas of focal infection, or they can be scar interferences that can affect the lymphatic system. So we look a lot at the mouth, which I'm happy to talk more about. There can also be, if people have lived in a moldy home, they can have chronic sinusitis. If people have had a lot of tonsillitis, that's key lymphatic tissue in the base of the back of the throat that can affect the brain and can affect the gut. And then there's also scars, as we mentioned. So once we address these things and find solutions and treatment, what people start to feel like is this movement in their body, this movement in their system, and that can translate into symptom improvement. One of the things I always like to caution is, especially if people have a lot of chronic infections, and that's why some of their symptoms are showing up. When we get the lymphatic system, there can be a short period of time where they may be a little flu-like in the beginning. And that can be discouraging for some people. But if we understand, and I'm happy to share more about how the lymphatic system works, but if we understand, okay, the body is getting this movement, and in this lymphatic fluid, there could be chronic viruses, pathogens that the immune system is finally engaging and recognizing and doing what the immune system knows how to do, is to mount a response and clear that. So we usually support people with things to support their immunity, but also binders in those initial phases of getting their lymphatic system moving. And then they quickly recover, and then things really start to flow. And they can see how much this is just a underlying foundational part of their treatment to help their body recover from the chronic illnesses that I see.
Yeah, that's I'm sure people are listening going, me? Pick me, help me. You know, definitely working with women in the breast implant illness space, and women who are, you know, coming into my sphere with the desire to really feel beautiful, no matter how they look. It's a feeling, you know, beauty starts from within. But if you feel like you're tired all day and you're struggling to get out of bed, and you see the bags under your eyes, no matter how much sleep you get, no matter how many treatments that you've done on your face, or how much makeup that you wear, you just have this sense of feeling like things are not in flow. Like, I always talk about the greatest way that we could tire ourselves out is to be in resistance to change or what is happening. And right now in our world, like, everything is just going, you know, coming at us in so many different directions. And so, you know, that's why I say that the flow does start with mindset too. If you're trapped and stuck in your mind, in the hemispheres of your brain, then you're also creating that as above, so below in your lymphatic system. So what you just mentioned, breast implants are blocking so many lymph nodes and so many lymph ducts and so much of our lymph flow. And I'd like to talk more about that, because many people today are very quick, as you know, in your practice, to label something, because this is how we've been taught, right? If you fit into this box of these symptoms, then I'm going to go to the doctor, I'm going to get boxed into this, and then I will finally know what's wrong with me, right? Okay, I've got poor circulation, it must be Raynaud's. I've got, you know, my hair is falling out, it must be Hashimoto's. Or, you know, we're so quick to put ourselves in a box and say, yes, I finally figured it out. But I'd like to hear from you, especially with regard to immunity and autoimmune disease, which 5 years ago I said, there's no way that 100% of us won't have some degree of autoimmune disease with the level of toxic load that we're experiencing, right? So how does all of these things we're talking about, like, we'll start with immunity, because many people think, oh, I got these symptoms, maybe I have the C, maybe I have the thing, the long haulers thing.
Yeah.
And so they're quick to put themselves in that box. So maybe it's just a sluggish lymph. And because you talk about viruses and retroviruses getting trapped in our lymphatic system, right? So what's that connection there?
Yeah. And if you don't mind, Diane, maybe if I could take a journey and just share kind of how the lymphatic system works, because then I can maybe explain that a little bit more. If you don't mind, you know, I don't want to be redundant, because I know you do a lot of education around this, but I'll try to make this brief. And so the lymphatic system is tied intimately to our circulatory system. And it's this body-wide network of lymphatic capillaries, lymphatic vessels, lymphatic nodes, glands, and organs. And so how our lymphatic system operates is that we have essentially oxygen-rich blood leaving our heart. It travels through arteries. And then when it gets to what we call the tissue space, so a lot of the action of our body happens in the tissue space, right? That's all of our, you know, all of the spaces in between our cells. And so essentially the arteries become capillaries. A lot of fluid actually leaves that capillary space. Some of it returns to what we call venules, and then that oxygen poor blood gets returned to the heart, and that system keeps going. But that fluid that just stays in that space becomes what we call pre-lymph. And what that space is, it's what we call the extracellular matrix. So this is the space where it's the space in between our cells. So things that are in the space are things like collagen, right? The most abundant protein in the body. Collagen is a structural protein. In the beauty industry, we know a lot about collagen, right? Healthy collagen equals healthy skin. Collagen is not only a structural protein in the body, but it's also a information highway in the body. It's a information highway for biophotons and electrons and communication. So we not only need healthy collagen for our structure and to look beautiful, but also it's a communication network. And not to digress too much, but I just want to add that collagen is also a site of toxicity. So things like, if we get exposed to something like glyphosate and herbicide Roundup, glyphosate is an analog to what we call glycine. Glycine is a key amino acid that makes up collagen. So in the lack of glycine in the presence of glyphosate, we might incorporate glyphosate into our collagen network, and then that can trigger an autoimmune connective disorder like scleroderma or other mixed connective tissue diseases. So again, so that fluid, not to detour, but I just wanted to share that. And then so that fluid is encountering collagen, it's encountering elastin, hyaluronic acid, fibroblasts, mast cells, again, and then all of the cells in that tissue space or even organ, depending on where we are in the body. So the job of that, the fluid is to bring oxygen and nutrients to that tissue space and then remove waste. And unfortunately, because we're exposed to all of these toxicants I just illustrated through glyphosate, we're also exposed to heavy metals. We might also encounter different pathogens. Lyme, I treat a lot of Lyme and co-infections, and Lyme likes to hang out in this connective tissue space or tissue space because Lyme, the spirochete called Borrelia, likes to feed on collagen and elastin, and so it creates a lot of inflammation in the space. Viruses or retroviruses can hang out in the space. Anything that we can encounter can hang out in the space. So the space is only as healthy as this fluid is able to drain. So this fluid actually drains from this tissue space, and there are these lymphatic capillaries that are the beginning of our lymph that this fluid drains into. And then these capillaries are small, and then they become, they enter bigger kind of networks called lymphatic vessels. And this lymphatic fluid essentially encounters lymph nodes on the way back to our heart. Lymph nodes are an area where our immune system engages with all these things that I just encountered. And depending on the health of our immune system, we either have a immunity and an immune response, or we might get symptomatic and be overwhelmed by the things we're encountering. And then again, something that's very different, which of course we'll talk about more, is that the capillary system and the circulatory system relies on pressure, a pressure gradient and pumping action from the heart. The lymphatic system doesn't have that, so it really relies on fluid dynamics and movement to get this fluid to basically meet our lymph nodes and to return to our heart via the thoracic duct on the left side and the right lymphatic duct on the right side. And so why I just want to take a moment to share that is to share and paint the picture of, okay, the lymphatic fluid is really important in order to make sure that this isn't congested and the system is flowing to really have healthy cells and healthy collagen as well.
Yeah, and I hear so many people, and this is the case, right? Well, what do I do for more collagen? I'm aging, my skin's sagging, I have wrinkles, I have puffiness or whatever. Okay, just take more collagen. And I mean, I even have a supplement, in my product line. It's collagen, but I'm also real with people. It's like, that's one of the builders to build this collagen network. But then there's also the blockers, and that's what we're talking about here. So I'd love to dive deeper into as well some of these things that can block the lymphatic system. You just talked about different pathogens, different toxins, lymph being one of the big ones. Lyme, I didn't know that about collagen. I knew that about glyphosate. When you start taking glyphosate finders to bring it out of the body, I started seeing that my neck and my aging neck, skin started to develop more tissue, more healthy tissue. And I was like, whoa, all I did was added some ion restore. And then, my skin started looking better. And, it's well known in the literature that about a third of women, we attack our own collagen when we have breast implants. So, women are like, I'm aging quickly. And that's probably one of the reasons why. So I'd love to talk about like the heavy metals and infections section of what blocks our lymphatic system. Because a lot of women in my practice, they're athletes, they're go-getters, they're movers, they're shakers, they're still moving, but they still have what feels like lymphatic stagnation and congestion. Can we talk more about those big blockers?
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I love the work that you're doing. And I think, giving people healthy building blocks is huge. And then also making sure, as you said, that this is a blocker, right? So we're only as healthy as our body is able to eliminate. And unfortunately, we forget about the lymphatic system as a huge route of elimination. So I think about it as a route of elimination, an area of immune surveillance. And then we can get esoteric if we like to, but it's also because of the fluid dynamics and the fluid in that space. It also can hold memory and emotion. So it's like this intersection between all of this. And so when we think about things that can create stagnation, right? So just one of the things also, just to, if it doesn't sound like your audience, but if people are chronically ill and they're sedentary, right, if we don't have a lot of movement in our body, that can be one predisposition to having lymph stagnation, because of we need movement for the lymph to flow. But again, what we're seeing with the modern life is that even if we do everything right, which I still empower people to do because it's so important, there's still a level of exposure that we all have to acknowledge. And so we can be highly exposed to things like heavy metals. When I talk about heavy metals, I like to educate a lot about aluminum. Aluminum is a heavy metal that is very widely found in our environment. And unfortunately, because of its use in personal care products and medications and our water supply and food, so that we can be highly exposed to this. Also, in the presence of glyphosate, we can be more apt to absorb aluminum that we ingest orally because of a leaky gut. And so again, our exposures to aluminum are higher than they ever have been. And aluminum can, again, hang out in this extracellular matrix and to bind to these different structural proteins or proteoglycans and create inflammation and confuse the immune system or increase histamine or create inflammation even in the blood vessels. Aluminum has a huge role in neurological illness and can bioaccumulate in the brain as well. So we want to lead a life of, we want to lead a life, is that better? Yeah, we want to lead a life of really being aware of aluminum and then also detoxifying aluminum. The cool thing is that one of also key ingredient in the beauty world is silica, right? So we love silica for our hair, our skin, our nails, but silica also binds to aluminum and helps us to eliminate aluminum. So we can, do two things at once, in that way. So aluminum can congest your lymphatic system. Silica is something that we can help to bind and make sure that we're really getting it out of our body. And then the other heavy metals I like to educate people on are mercury, lead, arsenic, and cadmium. Mercury, arsenic, lead, and cadmium are all in what we call the sulfhydryl affinitive metals. And so they kind of all have similar but different actions in the body. And they also use similar detox strategies to eliminate them. So one of the biggest exposures of mercury that I still unfortunately see is in the mouth of people. So amalgam fillings are still, placed in people, unfortunately, and then some people have had them for a long time. And when we have this constant exposure to mercury, the number one neurotoxin in our environment, that can affect our collagen. It can affect our cranial nerves. It can poison the lymphatic system. It can get into, again, our central nervous system and affect our body's ability to self-cleanse our brain. And it can attach to different structural proteins and create inflammation. And so mercury is a big one. Lead does something similar as well. Lead is still used in airplane fuel. So we can be, exposed to lead when we fly. It can be from past exposures as well. In paint, women who have been exposed to lead can sometimes store lead in their bones. And so going through hormonal changes, especially in perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen declines and we break down bone, we can be exposed to lead that's getting released from our bones. And so some women can have more symptoms around that time, and that they can be neurological, that can be lead toxicity. Arsenic is another one. It can be in our water. It can be chicken rice, cadmium just from industrial life. So those are the heavy metals. We talked about already glyphosate. There are other herbicides and pesticides that obviously can affect our body as well. And then pathogens. So again, because, this space is the area where, our immune system is engaging with what we're exposed to from our environment, and that could end up in our bloodstream. This can be a space where viruses we encounter. So I see a lot of viruses that I'm sure you educate people on, from Epstein-Barr to latent chickenpox or varicella to CMV, HHV6, the herpes viruses, HSV1, HSV2. There's a whole other component called retroviruses that we can be exposed to from our environment, or it's part of our genome. So we have about 5 to 8% of retroviral DNA that can be activated, even especially when we have these herpes viruses that I just mentioned. We can actually express our endogenous retroviral expression in our DNA. So it's kind of this chicken or the egg thing. So, but they go hand in hand. Mold, so mold and mold exposure from our environment. We can inhale mold spores. They can produce mycotoxins that can also be affecting the space. Parasitic infections. There's a lot of parasites that have an affinity for the lymphatics. And so one thing that I'm always humbled by is how much parasitic infections can affect the lymphatics. So those are a lot of things that can block the lymph. I already talked about Lyme and co-infections. That can be something as well. And then, I mentioned mercury in the mouth, but also root canals or cavitations in the mouth can also be a chronic reservoir and infection, and can be just this chronic toxicity entering the lymphatic system. So always do a dental health screen if you feel like you've been struggling with a lot of chronic issues or have lymphatic issues that you can't get past. And then scars can affect our body. So if anyone who's listening, especially with breast implants, those scars are really wonderful to treat, whether you still have them or getting them out. The scars often, there are lots of different scars that can be that people have from the surgery, but often I see the ones underneath the breast, and either using a technique called neural therapy, which is an injection technique, or topicals that we can apply, or even light therapy, we can help to break down that scar tissue, because again, scar tissue can create blockages in the flow of lymph wherever they are. So a lot of what we do is to look at how do we offload stress for the body by treating scars. And so I think that's a big list, of things that, block the lymph. But those are the things that come to mind.
Oh, Dr. Christine, that was, there's so many different directions I can take that. And now I know what, how people feel when I throw a lot out, because it's like, wow, that was just a mic drop. But I also want to, pick up the mic and go different directions with it. And, the first I'll say with the scar thing, Kelly and I were talking, because she recently had me on her show, Kelly Kennedy. And of course, we're talking a lot about scars with breast implants, right? And I'll show you guys, if you're on the podcast, you can, watch this on my YouTube channel, but I'll show you, kind of how this looks as some of these scars. And what Dr. Christine's talking about is, you can see from my surgery, when I had my breast implants removed, you can see these scars. Yep. They go all the way around, and it's kind of like a hook. It's like an anchor that women who get their implants out, I was not talked about to any of this stuff. And I didn't even write about it in my book, Dr. Christine. So I think that, knowing this wisdom from you ladies now, and then also just thinking about all the other scars, I think that our scars are such beautiful metaphors for what we've been through in our lives. And so many women are death-defying. They're really insecure, obsessively insecure about their scars, and they want to, cover them up. And I'm like, hold on, let's thank our body for what it's been through, and the lessons in the battle scars. And, I've got one up here from being attacked by a cat when I was a kid. I had 22 stitches in my head. I almost lost my eyesight in both eyes. I have scars from soccer all over my body, scars from horses. So I have several. So when she said that, and then I added that to what you just said, which is every one of my teeth was a silver filling from the time I was about, 8 years old until I was about 30. And I was like, oh, they look terrible. I didn't know anything about the toxic load because I wasn't doing anything in functional medicine at that time.
Right.
And you'll love this. I don't know if I talked about this on your show, but this is what I see a lot of women doing too. And people who don't know better, they're going after this whole, I need to get these silver fillings out. And they go, I'm gonna get them all at one time. And they go to a regular dentist and then they get them all removed and they're like, I'm mercury free.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how long have this thing's been in your mouth? So I
Totally.
got mine out all at once with a normal dentist 2 days after I had my breast implants installed.
Oh, wow.
Definite palm to forehead moment.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
my lymph is like, help me, because I'm one of those people who is educating on all these things. And I hear a lot of people probably listening going, oh, I can hear you and me. And that's why I always share these things. So you guys can all hear yourself in me. And that's why Dr. Christina is sharing these things too. So people think, okay, my silver fillings are out. Check, I'm done. They think, okay, well, I've had some work on my scars and maybe they haven't. Check, I'm done. I eat organic. I'm done. My water filter's clean. I'm done. I'm good. I don't need any help. But why could these things be dangerous when we just check off, oh, I don't have arsenic in my food because I eat organic, or I have a Brita water filter, or I have like a reverse osmosis or whatever. I mean, it's kind of all over the place at this point. So how do we go after these things even above and beyond just the eat organic, move, rebound, do all the things that most people have talked about, how to improve lymphatic, because there's a lot, I know. So whatever direction you want to take that,
Yeah.
or anything, go for it.
And I just love how you share your story, Diane, because look at you now, right? Look at how healthy and vibrant you are and how everything you've been able to go through. So anyone who's listening who might be overwhelmed by this is just like, you're a great example of how you can recover from these things. And I think you made a really good point before we go into lymphatic strategies that I just want to land on in a moment, that with the mercury detoxification piece, the number one thing is to avoid exposure, right? So when you get the exposure out, again, that is the first step. So that's number one. Wonderful thing to do with always a biological dentist, always with a either functional medicine or a naturopathic provider in tandem, so that we really can support your body. So this is one of the best things that you do in your life, rather than something that can aggravate or flare you. I've been so humbled by metal detox, because metal detox takes time and it can be a lifestyle. And so going into the question, that I really feel that what we're called to do in modern life is to lead a lifestyle of drainage and detoxification, right? And so not that we're going to be perfect, and we have to understand that we live on the planet right now in modern life, and there's just going to be an acknowledgement of how imperfect it is right now. So I say that because I think sometimes when we wake up to these things, it's so overwhelming that we can sometimes become a little bit obsessed or neurotic, or not enjoy life either, because we, hyper focus on it, which I understand we have to go through our phases of understanding this, but, finding that balance of doing what you can and, eliminating what you can within your own personal household, within your own body. And then, obviously just understanding where we are, and then how do we set up tools to support you on a regular basis? Because again, my perspective is that health is really a simple equation in a lot of ways. And we're as healthy as we're able to eliminate these things on a regular basis. And so again, I know you've educated clean food, clean air, clean water. So we're just going to assume that those things are taken care of in the body. And again, just dialing in on the lymphatic system, really for any detoxification strategy or any movement that I get in an organ of elimination, I always like to support people with binders, and binders help to really bind these toxicants, also other normal metabolic waste or normal things that could be in excess in the intestine. So when we talked a lot about this at the lymph and hormone cleanse, right? How the amazing job our liver does with detoxifying our environment, and how bile is a route of elimination. So bile, we need to eliminate normal metabolic waste or hormones. So if you're estrogen dominant, bile flow is really important for you. And then all of these toxicants that I just shared throughout the conversation today, a lot of them get eliminated through, goes through the liver, phase 1, 2, and 2.5 and 3 detoxification. And then bile basically gets released in our intestines when we digest fatty meals, but it also has it's a route of elimination. So we're not only digesting our food, but we're also eliminating these waste products. And then in our normal physiology, some of this bile, a majority, about 95% of it, gets reabsorbed via the gut and returned back to the bile, or the liver rather. And so binders are there in the intestines waiting for the bile to be excreted and to bind to those heavy metals, those glyphosate molecules, those mycotoxins, all of these things, and help to eliminate through the stool. So whenever we're doing any detoxification, we want to make sure that we have binders and also healthy bowel movements to make sure that we're having that route of elimination going. And so binders can be things like chlorella, special zeolite powders, fulvic and humic acid. You mentioned ion, which has fulvic and humic acid, or an extract of that. Clays, charcoals. Those are the main ones. Pectosols, modified citrus pectin, that's another one. I also use a silica-based binder called Enteros gel, but those are the main binders that I use. And we can get strategic and use different binders for different things, depending on what you're exposed to. But we want to lay the foundation with good binding and good bioflow. And then on the backdrop of that, we want to also, of course, think about other routes of elimination to support. So we have our liver, our gallbladder, our colon. We have our kidneys, so staying hydrated. Our lungs, breathing is really important. Our skin is a route of elimination. So with all that being said, we can then really think about the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system, movement, we already talked about movement, rebounding, dry skin brushing, awesome tools. And then I like to use a lot of either internal herbs or topical herbs and topical ingredients to get the lymphatic system flowing. So again, we want to make sure that there's no interferences. All of that has been addressed, but some things that I love, I work with a formulator, Dr. Marco Ruggiero, who formulated a cream called Flow Cream, and it has a probiotic in it that makes a peptide called macrophage activating factor. It's through his brilliance that he created this. And we use that a lot topically. So we'll use that topically, especially in the cervical lymph nodes, to help the lymphatics and the brain drain. And the macrophage activating factor helps to support any of the chronic infections that might be congesting the lymph nodes. And so when you apply it topically, you get a lot of movement. And then we see all sorts of things. We put CBD in one of the flow creams as well. And CBD, there's a lot of great information about CBD. That was an idea Marco and I had because there are CB1 receptors in the brain, but also CB2 receptors through the lymphatics in the body. So CB2 or CBD helps to bind and support those CB2 receptors to enhance immune system and lymphatic flow. So that's one thing. You are aware I have a business partner, Lauren, who we created a line called Lymph, and I created this formula called Lymphagem, and these are just some common herbs that are really great lymphatic support. So we put them in an oil infusion, and so things like nettles and red clover and calendula and red root, and then we combine them with some essential oils, heliochrysum and frankincense and geranium, and it's just kind of a to-go kind of little lymph roller that you can put on areas of lymph congestion. And then there are these other like home tools. So we talked about dry skin brushing. I love, especially for your audience who might want to really apply lymphatic drainage to your face to look younger and to more vibrant. They're the gua shas. I have one on my desk. I do that at night. So some basics around lymphatics is you always want to open up what's downstream before draining what's upstream so that the lymph has somewhere to go. And so if you're going to drain your face, you want to open up the thoracic duct, the right lymphatic duct, the collarbone, the neck, and then you want to essentially work this way so that the lymphatics have somewhere to go. Because if you kind of start here and all of this is congested, you're just not going to get as much movement. So that's a great tool. I love light therapy, and in the cosmetic world, they use a lot of light therapy, which is awesome. Red and infrared are really great for the lymphatic system. Infrared, especially because infrared penetrates the most deeply in the body, and infrared helps to create what we call exclusion zone water in the body, and can help increase structured water in the body. The same term, right? And so the more structured water we have in the body, the more flow we have in the body, the more energy, the more detoxification. So I think a lot of our lymphatics the more structure, water we have in our lymphatic system, the more we get this movement and flow. So that would be infrared. Also, UV can be very good for that as well. Those are the two wavelengths of light. Getting good sleep can be really helpful for the lymphatic system because we have this amazing lymphatic system in our brain at night that helps our brains detoxify. And think about your beauty routine actually can help detoxify your brain. So if you have a good flowing lymph in your face, in your neck, then that downstream effect of the lymph in your brain has somewhere to go. So you can feel even better about your beauty routine. So that's kind of the subtleness that I love working with a skincare line, because I know that the healthier we have lymph in our face and in our neck, the better our brains will be. So
Ah, that right there, that's so,
yeah,
it's beauty, body, brain, right? And
yeah.
so many women, I mean, more than ever today, the average woman, including myself, Dr. Christine, I've been like, why lately it was so much more brain fog than usual.
Mm,
In the last year, where I've just been having a harder time. And I'm like, I'm 42. I could be, could be part of a little bit of osteoporosis and breaking down some lead. Cause I've heard it said that 4 generations is how long it takes to detox lead
yeah.
from the body. It's really
Yeah.
invasive to clear.
Mm.
I wanted to clarify one question, then I want to get back to the
Sure.
and perhaps end there and then talk about how people can learn more about you and how to follow you to do a lot of these things with themselves and their own practices. Is you said something earlier about airplanes and lead, because I did just want to mention the lead thing. Does that mean that if you're on an airplane that, they have all these filters, right? So how are we more exposed to lead if we're inside the plane? Are we still breathing in that air if it's dumping in the back?
Yeah, we can, and especially if we're sitting in an airplane for longer periods of time, if you're delayed, that air can be more recirculated. I also think about the environment, right? So even the leaded fuel that gets dumped in the atmosphere, that does have a downstream effect in our environment that we do breathe in on a regular basis. And so I do feel that there's, those 2 routes of exposure, plus all the other, unfortunately, chemicals, especially now in the land of COVID, how they're spraying the planes even more. I have a lot of compassion for our pilots and flight attendants because they tend to be a population that can be more affected by blood cancers and neurological illnesses. And I think it's because of toxicity and also radiation, that they get exposed to. So, we have to be grateful for the people who, do that work because they do put their health at risk doing the work.
Yeah, it's like those metals are, we're all contaminated more than ever in human history that we know of, contaminated with these metals. And these metals are magnets for magnetic frequencies. And
Yeah.
so it's like the more that you have that, the more exposed to EMFs and radiation on your computer, on your phone, and close to you, on your lap, in a car that's smart or anything that's smart, it's not so smart for your cells. And so, that could be the chronic histamine cytokine storm that you're experiencing. And then, you're quick to label it, oh, it's just this long haulers, or it's just chronic fatigue, or it's just fibro, or it's just, and then we stop our curiosity and our research there. And then we take medications and supplements based on that, but it's so much deeper. And that's what this whole episode is about. So 2 more topics, if you could dive in, just as briefly as you'd like. The one I hear a lot is, on viruses, and I want to end with the beauty stuff because I want to hear like the top secrets for what women can do and maybe some of your products that people can develop a routine around for how to improve lymph in our face that also improves our brain. Because as we have heard it now, more women are dying now. The number 1 cause of death is, I think it was Dr. Klinghardt, I said at some point that it was like our brain, it was the neurological damage happening in the brain and
Neurological illness is definitely on the rise in women. I mean, a lot of, different illnesses, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, a big part of it is toxic load and infection, virus, and stagnated lymph. So I definitely want to talk about that. So what I'm hearing a lot of women do, and this is again where women stop, and I see this, oh, I just found out the problem. I have Epstein-Barr virus. I finally figured it out, and now all I have to go after the Epstein-Barr. First of all, I'm seeing that they're not even appropriately labeled, because the people who are reading the labs are giving them the diagnosis of having Epstein-Barr, even though it was an old diagnosis from years and years ago. So looking at the wrong markers. But what do you have to say about like the lymphatic system, retroviruses being 5 to 8% of our DNA, and how to actually work through this. So it's not just about killing a virus or going after this thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like a area of contemplation and an area, in my practice and seeing all the patients I see and the things that I've evolved my understanding over almost 11 years. And that, we have this ecosystem in our body, right? So we are more bacteria than human cells. We have a virome in our body of 380 trillion viruses. We have a microbiome. We have this concept of terrain. So the idea of one pathogen creates a whole illness is part of the story. But I feel that it can be, still we're reaching in that conventional paradigm to say this thing caused all of these things, treat this, then we're fine. However, again, and I'm happy to be evolving my thoughts over the years, but where I am today is that if it was one thing, you wouldn't be so sick and it'd be easier to treat, right? And so we have to understand and we have to look at, and I think Dr. Zach Bush does brilliant work in talking about our ecosystem, and that the Epstein-Barr might not be the cause, but might be the signal of toxicity in our body and immune suppression in our body, and things that, for whatever reason, these things that typically we're exposed to should be dormant. The immune system should be in control and shouldn't create symptoms. So that Epstein-Barr, and I understand the whole, lab testing, but let's just say for this purpose that this person has reactivated Epstein-Barr and they have a high load of Epstein-Barr virus and a high level of immune activity towards Epstein-Barr virus. So yes, there is a place to use antiviral strategies and to go after the Epstein-Barr. I'm not saying that that's not part of it, but having to look at the conditions of, okay, what made up this person's health story, right? Were they exposed to a moldy home? Did they get a Gardasil vaccine? Did they go through a divorce? Did, they have a death of a loved one? And then did they get sick, right? Are they doing something that's completely out of alignment with their soul's purpose? So Epstein-Barr could be the messenger that, yes, you have to kill, but is it the only thing? No. And that's where I think, ultimately, I believe that our bodies are a microcosm of the macrocosm of what we're on the planet for. And unfortunately, our ecosystem has become so off kilter, so imbalanced, and we find ourselves in the pandemic that we find ourselves in today, not because of one virus that is lethal, but because of one virus that's encountering a completely pathological and dysfunctional terrain. So I come to this as empowering people to, how do we tend our garden, tend our ecosystem, and how do we understand more about this in our own bodies, and then, create, demand change within our environment around us and what we can control.
This is the question of the decade, is how do we all open up our minds such that we see that, you're not one weed that's coming out of this big terrain. And that's what everybody's seeing it as is one weed and it's killing everything. And, I think that weed is stopping at, yes, that must be it, without, and stopping the digging process. I think that part of the beauty of this life is that we all have the ability to get to know ourselves and our cells through our creator, and get out the shovel and dig more deep into what makes up the microcosm of what connects us all, and what connects us to source. And when we stop at just one weed, then there's no more growth to be had there. It's just that's it, so it's, I'm very even careful to even use the word I know now, because I really don't. The more I learn, the more I'm like, God, I really don't know anything. I know a lot, but there's still so much to learn, is my point. And I wanted to end on this note, because what you said earlier is that, and how I like to approach everything too, is that you can, while you're building your beauty, you can also build your energy, vitality, and your immunity. So you said that while you're going to focus on your beauty, from, let's say, your face, your skin, you could also at the same time be loving on your brain and be detoxing your brain and be in flow. So maybe we can end on just some 3 really fun hot tips that you do, and that, are things that are relatively simple to get started for people to take away. Maybe it's your product line, maybe it's just some, movements that you can impart upon us, but whatever that looks like. And then I'll also make sure that they go check out your program as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. And so, when we think about it, what everybody has access to, so you can use something like a gua sha, or you can use your hands to essentially do self lymphatic drainage massage and opening up again the channels downstream before you, move lymph upstream. Wherever you want to, move lymph, you always want to go in the direction of your heart, just FYI there. Again, we could do so many other things, but hydration is really important. Healthy lymph has a lot to do with how well hydrated we are. So having filtered water, I also put electrolytes in my water every day. You can also drink water that's high in silica, and that's going to help not only beauty, but also detox aluminum. Getting really great sleep is really important. So just being mindful of circadian lighting and making sure that you're not overexposed to the wrong types of light before bed, because that can confuse your pineal gland. I take melatonin, and Marco just helped me create this cream that we use that's topical GABA that helps us to get into that deep restorative sleep, because the REM sleep is when our lymphatic system works the best, and also when we're dreaming. So when we're more connected to, whatever you believe in. And so, sleep is really important. I love light. I feel like light is the future of medicine. And so I have a, sauna space infrared thing right on my desk. But, even get out in the sunlight. I mean, we all have access to, the sun. We all have access to the ground to ground on. Grounding can be really great for your lymphatic flow, because it also increases circulation and also exclusion zone water in the body. So that could be a really great one. And then it goes hand in hand with a lot of this. I'm really into the work of heart math and heart coherence, and just being in a state of gratitude really helps to create a strong electromagnetic field in our heart that actually informs our brain. So it also will have a positive effect not only in our mind and our spirit, but our physiology. And then, yeah, we have a skincare line called Lymph, and it's created with a lot of intention, a lot of love, and we created products to really help to drain the lymph and increase circulation and exfoliation. And also, we have some different topicals to also hydrate the matrix, and help to also give you great building blocks for healthy collagen and elastin and all of that good stuff. So, and then as you mentioned, we have a lymph rehab blueprint. So if you want to try to have practical tips to do on a regular basis to jumpstart your lymphatic system, we'll send all of that information to Diane as well. So thank you. And I appreciate you letting me share all these. So it's team effort, right, to get all this information out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I also really agree with the light therapy. Every time I get out of my infrared sauna, it's like I've reverse aged, and the next day my skin feels so good, and I don't have that puffy feeling, and I know it's my lymph going, "Oh, I've been liberated."
Yeah, totally,
And
totally.
it's and you can love yourself more when you're not in this like state of fog and fatigue and frustration. And so,
Mm, mm,
there's so much to this, and it really is just going back to our biological nature and the rhythms, that we were given when we were born. So it can be very simple. So I'm glad that you shared some of like the simple basic strategies.
mm,
Even though we're being, forced to stay inside, encouraged to stay away from each other, there's
mm,
still certain things that we're missing when we're not able to touch each other, hug each other, love each other, and we're in these dark dungeons and you can't see light, and sun is bad for you. And it's like almost like everything right now